So thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Astrid Nunez. I'm the Director of Events at Foresight, and I'm very happy to say hello to you and welcome to the Fireside Chat on AI empowerment on scaling your clean tech ventures. Before we get started, I want to say a quick gratitude, and I want to acknowledge the lands on which Foresight operates. These are the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And for myself, I'm speaking to you from Surrey, British Columbia, which is the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. So a quick few words about Foresight. We're Canada's largest clean tech accelerator and clean tech network. We have supported over 1,200 Canadian clean tech ventures with over $1.5 billion in funding from them. We have an extensive EIR network of over 250 EIRs and mentors, and also a network of over 400 private capital partners, 1,500 national and global partners, and our community reaches over 15,000. And since our inception, we have created over 25,000 different climate connections, which is super exciting. Our purpose is to help the world do more with less sustainably, and our mission is to connect industry with the world's best clean technologies. So how are we getting there? We foster collaboration, we break down silos, and deliver action-oriented supports that accelerate Canada's clean technology innovations, adoption, and export growth. So before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Please make sure to use the chat option. If you have any questions, you can also use the Q&A function here in the webinar. And also this session is being recorded. So you will be receiving a copy of this and the presentation in a couple of days. So I want to quickly introduce our panels. Our panelists for today, we have Alireza Sharafi, which is partner and a fractional CTO from New Binary, and James Rowe from technology strategy and digital transformation expert from Insightful Innovations. Welcome, Ali and James. And over to our moderator, James Chebria, Senior Executive and Resident at Foresight, who will moderate this session. Over to you, James.
Thanks, Astrid. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. As you all recall, we do a series of these that are meant to try and help our audience with navigating some of these timely topics. And we've been seeing a lot of information going around on the artificial intelligence area. So now our attempt today is going to be to try and break this down and provide some background into, well, what is it? How are we actually supposed to use it? How are others using it? And with our panelists today of Lee and James, they're going to try and address, let's talk two broad areas. We're going to talk about utilizing artificial intelligence and how do you build it to create the tools that you can actually utilize as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James, who's going to give us a little background on AI, a start introduction, and give us some concepts about how this is being used. James.
Great. Thank you, James. I appreciate the intro there. So my perspective on this is I really focused on using AI models, and in particular, generative AI models like ChatGPT and other AI-powered tools that you're probably hearing about in the news. So that's going to be a focus of my introduction here. So go to the next slide. I'm just gonna, I have a short intro video of a cartoon version of James. So I'm just gonna ask if you could play this, please. Hi, I'm James Rowe. I help small and medium-sized businesses use AI and automation technologies to grow and innovate. With over 20 years of experience in both leadership and technical roles, I've dedicated my career to solving important business problems with technology. I have a wide range of experience in product development and have played a critical role in building companies, ensuring that the infrastructure and services are designed for scalability and market adaptability. So this is kind of a fun example of what's possible. This took me about an hour to put together with a custom GPT that created a Pixar version of myself. I uploaded a photo and it created the avatar. And then I used a tool called HeyGen to go and connect this with a recording of, that I made. So this is quick and easy. It's kind of a fun tool to show people what's possible. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of questions around what is AI? And AI is a massive topic. So I found a nice intro video that we'll play here just to kind of, at a 10,000 foot level, answer what is AI from a perspective of, what does it really mean? So Astrid, could you play this video too, please?
This video is here to help you understand what generative AI is all about in practical terms, beyond the hype. The better you understand this technology as a person, team, or company, the better equipped you will be to survive and thrive in the age of AI. So here's a silly but useful mental model for this. You have Einstein in your basement. In fact, everyone does. And by Einstein, I really mean the combination of every smart person who ever lived. You can talk to Einstein whenever you want. He has instant access to the sum of all human knowledge and will answer anything you want within seconds, never running out of patience. He can also take on any role you want. A comedian, poet, doctor, coach, and will be an expert within that field. He has some human-like limitations though. He can make mistakes, he can jump to conclusions, he can misunderstand you. But the biggest limitation is actually your imagination and your ability to communicate effectively with him. This skill is known as prompt engineering, and in the age of AI, this is as essential as reading and writing. Most people vastly underestimate what this Einstein in your basement can do. It's like going to the real Einstein and asking him to proofread a high school report, or hiring a world-class 5-star chef and having him chop onions. The more you interact with Einstein, the more you will discover surprising and powerful ways for him to help you or your company. Okay, enough fluffy metaphors. Let's clarify some terms. AI, as you probably know, stands for artificial intelligence. AI is not new. Fields like machine learning and computer vision have been around for decades. Whenever you see a YouTube recommendation or a web search result, or whenever you get a credit card transaction approved, that's traditional AI in action. Generative AI is AI that generates new original content, rather than just finding or classifying existing content. That's the G in GPT, for example. Large language models, or LLMs, are a type of generative AI that can communicate using normal human language. ChatGPT is a product by the company OpenAI. It started as an LLM, essentially an advanced chatbot, using a new architecture called the transformer architecture, which by the way is the T in GPT. It is so fluent at human language that anyone can use it. You don't need to be an AI expert or programmer. And that's kind of what triggered the whole revolution.
Right, so the main takeaway from this is that if you want to use generative AI, you want to use a model, this is accessible to almost everyone. These are commercial tools that you can get in and access. Now, generative AI is a small portion of the overall ecosystem of what is AI. And Ali will talk more about some of the other applications, particularly around building models, which is where machine learning, computer vision, and other uses of data is where you might be able to build your own models using your own data. So let's go to the next slide, please.
This video is here to help you understand what generative.
Okay, so focusing on the generative AI space, why should clean tech companies care about this? So there are lots of reasons why it's important, but some of the really powerful uses for generative AI are doing things like enhancing customer insights. So I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago with Foresight where I showed how to use customer interview transcripts to go in and extract insights for a sales call and use that to go and inform the next stage to understand how to customize your sales conversations to better progress a sale forward. You can also use this for doing customer discovery interviews or other market research. You can enhance predictive capabilities. So this is more in the building of models. So I've worked with some companies that are working on wildfires, for example, where they are collecting data from satellites or airborne sensors to detect the wildfires, but then they're using other data sources to integrate with that to make predictions about, are the wildfires actually high risk to human settlements and infrastructure? So these are things you can do with income data that's based on a custom model. You can also it can facilitate innovation. So I use my own GPTs and ChatGPT every single day. I use it for brainstorming. I use it helping myself with strategy. I use it for doing research. It's particularly good at when it's integrated with search capabilities. You can use it to go and research companies and do competitive analysis, for example. And then I already mentioned this, the sales side of things, but it can also scale marketing capabilities. So there's a lot of people who are using ChatGPT and other AI-powered tools for doing content generation, image generation, the video that I showed earlier. These are things that are now enabled and accessible to everybody. Next slide, please. So recently there were several reports put out about how startups are using AI. So this one is from a report out of Europe about how European startups are using it, but it's pretty representative. You can see that the vast majority are in the marketing space. So this is around content generation, managing social media, thought leadership. That's really where the emerging clear return on investment capabilities are showing up, but it's also in places like product development, IT, particularly around coding, in sales, where you can help collect, your salespeople can use it to go and customize sales collateral to be much more specific to specific sales opportunities. And the list goes on. Next slide, please. So what are the most popular generative AI tools? Well, chatbots, ChatGPT is by far the most popular. Seems everybody's tried it. Not everyone's had success with it, but it is something that's out there that everyone is familiar with. Some of the ones that you might not be as familiar with or haven't thought of as AI tools are things like grammar checkers, something like Grammarly that can help you kind of watch what you're typing and help you autocorrect your spelling and grammar as you go. Image generation is a really popular tool. So you might have heard of Midjourney. Dolly is built into ChatGPT. Gemini is a Google tool that can do image generation. And there's other commercial tools out there. Content creation, this is textual content. So these are helping you write blog posts, articles, presentations, etc. So there's tools like Gamma that can help you with creating together presentations and documents, etc. Then there's meeting assistance and transcription. So AI note takers, you've probably seen them in calls. These are things like Firefly's AI, Otter's AI. Tool I really like is called Fathom. And so they take a transcript of online meetings, which you can then use for some of the data mining that I was mentioning before. You can pull insights and actions out of those transcripts. And the list goes on here, so I won't cover them all. Next slide, please. I've included some links here for additional resources. So the first link is for finding custom GPTs. So there was an announcement last week from OpenAI that they have opened up their GPT store to everyone. So this is something, their store is often hard to find useful GPTs. They don't have a great search function. So the link there is for a custom GPT that helps you find other custom GPTs. So it's a nice tool that I use all the time. The second link provides, it's called What Can AI Do For Me? And it goes through common use cases. So it gives you an idea where you can look through and helps you to understand what's possible, and then gives you links to tools. And then the third group of links there are the reports. I pulled some of these statistics from around usage. So Hampton is a startup organization in the US that surveyed their membership. And then Startup Verband is the German one I mentioned. And then HubSpot also has a startup report that they put out. So when Astrid shares these slides, you feel free to check out those links. And then my last slide here, I've recently founded an organization called Circles of AI with a fellow EIR, Rochelle Grayson. And so Circles of AI is an open community where business leaders who are non-technical can come and learn about what's possible. So it's an opportunity to gain practical guidance on what's emerging and tools and techniques that have good return on investment. Share what you've learned with others, and explore hands-on examples. So in our meetings, we plan to go through common business scenarios, and how would you use ChatGPT or other AI-powered tools to solve those common business challenges. So if you'd like to join us, there's a QR code there. Feel free to scan that, and you can add your email to learn more.
Thanks, James. That was great. We'll get back to a whole bunch of questions for you momentarily. But Ali, so James gave us a good insight and introduction to, what is it? Now those are all set. Maybe you can give us some background on how we go about building, and from your perspective, a bit about how this is used.
Sounds good. Yeah, this is Ali. I'm one of the founders and CTOs at No Binary. I'm in Waterloo, Ontario, so you guys have 3 more hours to spend today. Enjoy. And also, so my background is mostly software engineering. I have a PhD in software engineering from Waterloo. And sorry, I'm just trying to face the camera, not to show what's happening in the back. So cool. And so I have a mixed background of AI and security. I've been involved in machine learning projects, mainly in computer vision, in industries, especially in sustainability industries. So I've helped like recycling companies, especially in Ontario, to use computer vision to help them with like waste segregation. There's like, I have done many projects in that part, also like reusability projects. Like we've done projects around reusability and dismantling in sustainability. I've also like done projects in I would say like health tech, med tech, again using computer vision to help with hospitals around keeping like some levels of like following some protocols. I've been involved with different projects, as I said, but like today I have some slides, but like the intention is not like definitely going through like everything in the slides. Please ask me questions. I just put some slides as the like a compass. I have had like hundreds of slides to put. I didn't want to just make, as you said, this is a more fireside chat, so we can definitely get into more details if needed. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about productivity, software development challenges that we have in building, using, of course, but also like building AI models. I definitely will focus more on like examples that are in common in sustainability, clean tech areas. So next slide, please. I really like this slide. I have like almost in all of my talks around AI, and it is around the leapfrogging. So I just want to like tell you guys that like if you think that you don't have much of software development done, or like you don't have much of clue around like what you want to build, and like, oh, we're like pretty behind in even using like traditional like software development, or traditional like image processing, or traditional like machine learning, it's fine, right? Like there's zillions of examples around like other industries that many even countries, right, like did the leapfrogging. For example, like payments. Many of us are still like using credit cards from like same credit cards from 70s or like 80s, right? Like it's been like same for 50 years. Many of African countries didn't already had like credit cards, but they jumped into like more modern like payment platforms like in mobile or crypto. Same with computing, like many of us didn't even have had like desktops or laptops, and like our mobile phones are now pretty strong, right? Like we don't really need our laptops probably. And that is the same with AI. So I just want to keep in mind that don't worry too much what you've done before. The opportunity is endless. Next slide, please. So when it comes to our as New Binary, our recent focus on AI, we build AI and we use AI. Of course, as James said, you can use AI for multiple reasons, but one of the main focus that we use it is for generating code. So we use we have had built platforms to use AI to build code, and there are a ton of them right out there, some links there, but the ones that we're using are more custom probably, but still you can use the ones that are out there, and I'm gonna have an example later. Next slide, please. So when it comes to generating code, you can use this is an example, right? An example of ChatGPT, for example, right? You need to, as James said, you have to care about prompt engineering, and you have to make sure that the problem that you're providing has all the high levels of the information that you need to provide. In this example, my partner JP has asked one of the interview questions that we have when we normally ask software developers in the interview. And as you see, this is flawless, right? Because this is a very limited scope problem, and it is wholly defined by proper prompts that the ChatGPT is able to create a code, right? It doesn't need much of background. Next slide, please. But this can get definitely a bigger scope and more complex. There's no point here to really read this slide. I just put a big an image here to show that this can definitely gets more complex, and it may get out of control, because the way that you want to provide the full scope of the project that you're working, you want to create code, right? And you have a team of developers, or you want to do it yourself, right? And you want to provide the scope to the the AI model that you're using. And in this case, yeah, you can ask for some templates, or give me some starting points, but definitely you need to give more context, right? Next slide, please. So this is a part of the demo, for example, that we have to show how this actually has been done. So rather than just out of shelf. So my focus here in this part of the talk is around building, right? And I want to show an example, rather than really just using out of shelf tools, right? Sometimes you need to actually go further, right, and build actual software modules that your AI models can interact with, and you need to have, even if you want to use LLMs, right? Yeah, you may end up building your model a traditional models, neural networks that you train yourself with all of the data you have, starting from scratch, or using pre-trained models. But even if you want to use LLMs, still you need to provide a lot of context. And in this case, we have built a lot of modules, right? We have built a lot of software modules that when you're interacting with LLMs, the LLM can interact with the pieces of software through in the configuration model. That doesn't have to find out what's actually underneath, and can just use those modules rather than dig into the details of each piece that I showed in previous examples. So you give context. You give context to the model. So if you please play the video, this is just using LLMs to change code in the actual software, and changing. And then it's going to, as you see, we sent some prompts to in this case another LLM, and actually change the code within a very large project, because we were providing context and abstracted what should be changed.
Keeping the code in a real code format.
Sounds good. So next slide, please.
The background is
cool. So I would like to start with what are challenges, right? With the AI, and digging more around how we have to build models that can help us with overcoming these challenges. This is just an KPMG review of like Canadian and like US companies that are dealing like we were like KPMG was asking them like why they're not using, or if they're using like recent disruptions. And as you see, like it's not like the numbers are not that high, at least like we expected the numbers to be higher, especially like Canadian companies. They are definitely keeping up, of course, like, but there are some challenges, right? So let's move to the next slide. And I put this slide to both talking about the challenges and how you have to focus on building. So like one of the main challenges that I want to talk about, they're like definitely like the list of challenges. Like you can think about, for example, like maintainability, explainability, safety, security, privacy. When it comes to privacy, right? There are like zillions of regulations in place, but also like we'll build more regulations, privacy regulations. But no matter what, like when you're talking about AI, when you talk about like machine learning and AI in general, like you're adding a complexity to whatever you had, right? And so when you're building a model, like you're gonna like use your source data, right? Like let's say that you are a clean tech, right? Like want to, as James had the example, right? Like building a company that can predict like forest fires, and like you want to like use some data like using your sensors or satellite information. So these are all the data that you have, right? And you're taking care about the data mining, the data association, cleaning data, making sure like you have like all the parts of the data that is relevant to like the determinants are the determinants that you have extracted out of data. So you take care of data, right? But at the same time, you have to make sure that the data that you're collecting, you cannot just go to the internet, right? And say that, oh, I'm going to just collect some data from internet, and you don't know where that's coming from. So you may be you may be impacted by data leaks or data poisoning. So if you're using like private data, so like you might be impacted by data leaks, meaning that your private data might be leaked to other like places, right? People might copy your data. When it comes to data poisoning, meaning that like if you don't really check your data, then data can be poisoned by adversaries, right? Like you think that you only have good satellite data, sensor data around like the predictions, but if an adversary, like I don't know, a competitor or like it can be with any reasons, people come and like poison your data, meaning that like manipulate your data set that you want to train your model on, then you're screwed, because like from explainability perspective, like AI models are harder to find out what the problem is. And like supply chain attacks can happen. Like what if you're like getting one piece of your data from one place, one piece another place? So you may end up like not knowing even like where the data is coming from, right? Like you may buy data from one company, but that company has already got the data from someone else. So the data part, creating a data set, is very critical. But then it's like around like building your model, right? And then start training your model. Again, when it comes to like building your model, you might like get your model from like one of the pre-trained models that is out there. You might like use one of the LLMs, right? To actually like use the power of LLMs, which is like make them like 0 shot, 1 shot, or like very few shot training. So you can train them faster, but still like your knowledge around like what they're doing inside, like bringing risk to you, right? So we need to make sure that like we have full control over the model, like because model inversion can happen, like input manipulation can happen. So these are all like challenges with taking care of your data and models, right? Like this is model poisoning is serious as well. So you have to take care of your models. You have to train your model with the proper data. And then when it comes to the actual inference, right, which is the third step of like building a model, right? Like you collect your data, you train your model, then you validate your model, and then you're gonna inference, use the like actual use of the model, right? You have to keep maintaining your model and your data set, because you cannot just build the model and just put it out there. And what if there are like some distribution of data that you didn't take care of it, right? So the end-to-end AI training and AI Maintainability is a challenge here. Like we have to take care of it from security perspective. You have to take care of it from a privacy perspective. And please keep in mind that this is not just buying a TV, putting it there. Most of you guys if you have software background, you know that you have to take care of a software, you have to maintain a software, you have to nurture it, right? You have to make sure that it gets updated frequently, right? With all these pieces of software, because when it comes to AI models, it's still piece of software, right? Using third-party libraries and such. Next slide, please. And when it comes to privacy, right? We heard a lot of stories initially when ChatGPT came out. Oh, this is data. Samsung stopped people from using it, or Apple stopped using employees to use it because there were a lot of confidentiality challenges. There were privacy challenges, right? We heard of a lot of copyright challenges. So it's been under construction to build regulations. Canada is a little bit slower than other parts of the world. We're still last time that I checked, we were still waiting for C27 to be passed. I think it was the second hearing in Commons. So we're a little bit slow, but we know that international entities are building, and also EU is pretty ahead of the game. US also doing some AI bills of right. Next
Ali,
slide.
I was just actually one of the things, obviously, with the rules and regulations, it's kind of, and we're seeing this, we're now parties are having to get involved in how this is actually going to play. What I'd like to actually try and move to now is getting both of you to comment on areas where you've seen how AI has been successfully integrated into operations, and also if you could touch on, I want both of you to look at how do you get this successfully integrated in, and especially when you're just starting out in this, because you're not probably going to be building right at the beginning. So where are those places? And then maybe you could actually provide a commentary on when it just really, probably the failures that actually stopped from parties wanting to continue to move down this path. So maybe a roadblock that you've seen, how that has actually played into the utilizers of this. And James, maybe I'll start with you on that.
Sure. So it's a multi-part question, so I'll try and break it down into the pieces. So the place where I'll talk about, or at least I'll talk about businesses that are starting with AI more generally outside of clean tech. So I think clean tech is a subset of the types of companies that we're seeing. So one of the things that's being pointed out in these surveys that are being done by startup organizations is that the vast majority of startups are embracing generative AI as part of their workflows and building them in and experimenting with them. So we're seeing emerging places, particularly around content creation and marketing, as I mentioned. That seems to be the #1 place where people are starting to get traction. And it's fairly simple use cases. It's things like using ChatGPT to help create an outline for a new blog post, and then taking that outline and doing some research and helping it to write a first draft, or even maybe taking it to a final draft, but then with some manual updates to get the tone of voice right and to do the kind of final layouts and things. There's a lot of uses around social media, so for social media management and audience engagement. There's a lot of commercial tools for doing this types of work as well. So I've used a tool called Taplio that helps with LinkedIn social media engagement, but things like Hootsuite, which is one of the common tools, they're adding in AI-powered capabilities as part of that core capability. Another place where I've seen this incorporated with a lot of companies is in note-taking for meeting management. As I mentioned, the AI-powered tools. So this helps people to really focus in on the meetings, much higher engagement, so you can really listen while letting your AI note taker take the notes, but then be able to have things summarized, action items pulled out and insights pulled out that then you can feed out to your team, or you can use to then be prepared for the next meeting. And you can connect this with HubSpot or Salesforce or other CRM tools, also to keep track of interactions over time. There's many other applications, but I'll just pause there and see if Ali wants to add some.
You're mute, James.
Again, it's going to be one of those days. James, can you just actually maybe type in the chat for everybody some of those some of the list of those tools that you just listed, just so everybody's got that. And Elise, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, like we have clients actually like using AI, right? Like, and we definitely encourage them to use AI like in when it's appropriate, right? Like, I don't think like we need to think about like, oh, it's like, you know, like the old example of I have a wrench, I'm looking for a bolt to open it or something like that. Like, we should not like look for applications, but like we should focus on our problem and find out if we can use AI for that. Like for example, I have a client like in closed captioning. It's called the Scrubwire. They've started using AI because they found that like they can definitely help their captioners, right? Like when it comes to the ASR, like a speech to text, as James said, right? And also like when it comes to captioning, a lot of text preparation and text corrections, looking for grammars and such is happening. I think it's a great example of using AI. Content generation is another one, but also like projects that like even before LLM type of AI, right? Like we're talking about like computer vision. Like I have another client in mining, right? Like that we're using AI, computer vision, to help with like rock breaking in Sudbury, Ontario. We're helping with e-waste management for the segregation, right? So like definitely AI is helpful, but also like at the same time, right, when it comes to earlier stage startups, like as through our Venture Jumpstart program in New Binary, like we definitely help them to understand first, like what the risk of the business is. A lot of time, it's not just building AI right away. Like a lot of time, it's just validating your problem, and then like look for solution can help you to move one step forward, right? And yes, if you're 100% sure that you have to use AI, you have to probably validate that and like reduce the risk. Like if something happened like 6 months, 1 year from now, right? Like I'm not recommending like to start a business that you're 100% sure that it's going to be replaced 6 months from now by AI completely, right? But what I recommend in general is make sure that you're focused on the problem, right? And if there is already a solution with by AI, like what I call them like horizontal focus AI companies, like bigger names, right? Like absolutely, like use them. Use the power of I really like the zero shot, one shot power, meaning that like these models don't need to be trained a lot, right, to be used for your specific applications. But also like, yeah, like if you find out that, oh, okay, like I actually need to use AI, right, for predictive maintenance or for predictions, right? Like we discussed the fire, the forest fire, for example, prediction. Yeah, then like you can definitely do it again step by step, right? You may like do what we call it like a build versus buy analysis, right? Like if I can just stitch some tools together, right, to see if it's working first, right, and then like take my business idea and then like start building my own, right? Yeah, like when you build your own, it's going to be customized. It's going to be probably like be fit to all what you need, but like depending on the application itself, it might take more time. Like it might be more expensive collecting data, training the models. So at the end of the day, I think it's all a balance between business and technology, right? So there's no one way of doing it.
It's good. So yeah, I see there's no one way of doing things. Obviously, one of the challenges is, when you look at some of the companies that we're working with, where AI is now really, this is going to be the first foray into for the company to be utilizing it. And James, you pointed out that A lot of times it's in the marketing area that they'll do. What are where have you seen this actually be helpful to the companies, and where has it actually gone wrong, where it's actually been detrimental to the companies and they didn't even realize it was being detrimental to them? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so places where I've seen it, so outside of marketing, the other place I've seen it be really beneficial is in personal productivity. So I mentioned that the way that I use ChatGPT primarily is as a collaborative approach. So I'm using it to extend my capabilities and to help me to do work in areas that I might not be really comfortable. So as an entrepreneur, I'm wearing a dozen hats. I'm working across lots of different application areas all the time. So how do I go and frame a problem and kind of get some support to give me like a step-by-step process? So let's say I need to make a marketing plan. So I could say, hey, ChatGPT, can you help me make a marketing plan? Give me a framework for how I would go and figure out how to create a plan to launch a new service and market that. And so if you write the right prompt, it will give you kind of a breakdown of the step-by-step activities you need to do. Then you can that gives you your high level view, and then you can go down and follow each of those steps and get more detail. And so that's the way I use it to guide me through that process to get to the outcome I want to achieve. So I talk about these as kind of AI playbooks or ChatGPT playbooks. A place though where you can go really wrong with AI, and Ali might have seen this, is where people assume that you can get AI to give you deterministic and repeatable and predictable results. So where you want to put it in and you're like, I want you to automate, I want to automate this workflow. And there's some decision making to go through, but I wanted to do exactly the same thing every single time. Because in predictive solutions, this might be different, but in generative AI, the purpose of the generative side is that it's doing creativity. It's not actually trying to provide predictable, repeatable results. So sometimes, you might ask ChatGPT an answer or question, and if you ask multiple times, you'll get different answers. There'll be slight variations in it. And this is not a bug. This is a feature of what generative AI is meant to do. It's not meant to give you the same answer every time. So if you're trying to use it that way, you will fail because it's not meant to be used that way. So it's just a different mindset. Normally with software, you use it and you get a predictable result, but generative AI is a different beast in that it doesn't work that way.
Ellie, any thoughts and comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of examples of the ones that I think that they normally go wrong, and I can give you more concrete examples. One example is, the hype of AI, that people like start companies because this is happening, right? Like, of course, like if you already have a business, if you already have a company, if you already are making money because you're an expert, right? So please use AI like when needed, of course, do it, right? But like starting a company because of the hype and you just want to like, okay, it's a gold rush, I'm gonna just go for some gold. And last year Collision conference in Toronto was a good example. Like I was just talking with people that they just had what I call it, like a wrapper or like a front end, right, of like publicly available tools, right? And they were like trying to build companies on that. So I think like that's like, I don't know their results. They might be like successful, but my guess is if there is no juice there, like if there is no actual business idea, and also like people, I really care about the people side of any company, right? Because you have to be an expert in what you're doing. And like technology, yeah, like you find technology, you find people who know technology, and they're going to help you, right? But you have to be expert in what you're doing. Another example is a lot of time that like we use AI without knowing where the data is coming from. A lot of examples around like biased data, right? Like some tools, for example, like in US, they were using for guessing, for example, if someone is guilty or not, right? I don't want to like give names but like those like millions of dollars software, like they were like trained with biased data, like being biased towards some specific races or ethnicities, right? And like a lot of time, like you find that, man, like the whole thing can be replaced by the small decision tree and 3 if statements, right? Like, so quality of data definitely is very important. Like people miss that, right? And also like a lot of time you can solve problems with simpler ways, right? And like just putting this is like, I just computed to Toronto. Do I need a 12-cylinder car, or like a 4-cylinder is gonna suffice, right? Something like that. But of course, a lot of time it works, right? I think it's working very good, like when it comes to like problems that like we as human are I would say we can do it, but because this thing, as the video was showing James, right, is like the Einstein, right, is like you have a connected like oracle, like connected databases around the world. And like when it comes to communications, like if I say something to James, then because there is the miscommunication, we're using words, right? Like we may like pass 80% of data, but when it comes to AI, right, everything is connected, right? So when it comes to search, right, like I found a lot of good applications, for example, in health tech, biotech, right? So definitely like, I don't know, DNA sequencing, for example, like I got a lot of good examples there. Found a lot of good examples, like places that is hazardous to human, right? Like when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to mines, for example. I've been in mines that it's clear to me that it's not good to see people there. I prefer to have like computer visions with robots there, right? Like these are great examples that AI is very useful, very like especially when it comes to like object detection, like image segmentations, like in hazardous environments. I don't know if you've been in recycling, for example, like facilities here, right? Like anywhere, but like here in Ontario, I've been in many of them, and you cannot even like breathe when you go there, right? So when we built like a machine for them, I felt very good because, you know, machines gonna do the job, and we don't need to put like humans' life at risk.
Ellie, I think you have a good point there around reliability. So one of the things is I'll use self-driving cars as a good example. We were promised that we'd all have self-driving cars. 10 years ago, it was like we're almost there, yet here we are, and we don't have self-driving cars yet. So the challenge with AI, and this is going to be something when you try to get to artificial general intelligence, is the first 80% of the way to getting results comes fairly quickly. It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the effort gets you 80% of the result, but that last 20% is really hard, and that's where there's unpredictability about how well you can get to the end. And I think this brings up an important point that sometimes an augmented AI human system works much better than trying to build something that's fully AI autonomous, because now you have a human in the loop that can help get that last 20% without spending a lot of money and time to try and get to 100% accuracy.
Yeah, I think it's that interrelationship where this becomes it's a tool as opposed to being the end. What I was wanting, James, you talked about at the beginning where we're seeing this being utilized. And one area that I was curious about, you guys could comment on, is the utilization of AI in both market discovery, customer discovery, and product development. And, because they're interrelated, and how AI as a tool can be utilized in that, because that's something that obviously could be beneficial to all the early stage companies. And James, thoughts on that?
Yeah, so as an EIR with Foresight, I really focus in on helping companies with their market validation. So working with early stage companies they're really trying to understand that market and figure out what the product, how that's fitting in, and understanding the problem space. And one of the things that's really valuable with these tools is it can help with doing that initial market research to understand what the the market dynamics are. We'll use the wildfire example again. So if you're considering technology to go and fight wildfires, well, first thing to do is just kind of go do what's the landscape look like for technologies that are emerging in the space. So how are wildfires currently, how do decision makers determine whether wildfire is a threat or not? What's the current way of doing it? What is, what technologies are used there? What are new emerging technologies? These are things you can all use ChatGPT for by asking the right questions and making sure that you are framing it towards using the search capabilities. So ChatGPT is integrated with the Bing search tool. So you can say, use Bing to do research to tell me about technologies used for wildfire detection. And it will come back and give you results. You can also ask it to cite and actually give you the links to the references that it's pulling information from. And there's other tools, like Perplexity is another one that is common, that brings together like multiple chatbots and summarizes the search results and gives you citations of where it pulls the materials from. But these are great to give you really quick access to go and understand what the market's landscape looks like. Then, so that's the starting point, but then you can also then dive into competitive analysis, looking at those other technologies that are there. As you're doing interviews with customers, you can take those transcripts and pull them out and look for commonality across your different discussions with customers. So you've had 10, 20 calls. What are the common problems that are being highlighted in every one of those calls? Frankly, preparing for those calls, create a customer discovery interview script. What are the questions that you should ask? How do you frame open-ended questions to discover the problem space? Those are things, again, ChatGPT can help with. So as I'm working with companies in the launch program and in the pilot program, we talk about some of these tools and how they can be incorporated.
Okay, Aliyah, I'm actually going to change the question for you because, what I'm curious about is, in some respects, we're effectively at the infancy of the applications of this. Kind of curious as to what your thoughts are as to borrow a phrase, where the puck is going, where you see this over the next few years, and I'd also like to get, you did comment on something else, so I'm going to ask you two questions to try and we'll do this quickly. There are some real risks associated with this, and you touched on the laws that are going on and the regulations, but there's some, like, when you're putting your information out there, you're losing control. So how does that all interplay? So these questions are actually interrelated as to how this AI progresses over time, but how do we actually ensure that there's some the risks are also managed in this process, or do companies have to just recognize these are risks that they're taking? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely privacy is one of the concerns, right? And I think lots being done since 1 year ago. Initially, people were more reluctant around how to use it, what to use. But now I think two things have been done. One is we have more regulations in place, but also I think people are getting numb around the privacy. They're just accepting it. Okay, it's there and it feels pretty good, so maybe I can just compromise my privacy. So I think it's a mix of both. You feel that if I don't use it, I'm going to be out of job, right? And you're just compromising your privacy. So I think it's 50-50. 50% got better, but also 50% we just gave up. And probably we're going to give up more in future. Is privacy one thing, but more than that, it's around how I don't want to talk philosophical, but I really like reading books around the philosophy part of it, Yuval Noah Harari or Yosha Bach, or these people talking about the future, right? What's going to happen around AI and human and jobs. I like to be careful, honestly. I don't want to be like 100% positive. I want to be like have mixed feelings. I think like AI is good. It's very useful, but also we have to be very careful. And what has happened during last year is also like alarming to me because, as I said, like some people just gave up because they feel that if they don't use it, they're gonna lose their jobs, or they're not gonna like like they cannot survive, right? So privacy is especially like in Canada, we don't really have something like IDA is the privacy like act that I think like I haven't checked it recently, but it's been still under construction to my knowledge, at least like passing the bill. Europe is doing a little bit better, but like Canada, US, we try to run fast. We liked running fast. So a lot of time we just compromise something and we find out like what has happened like later.
Ali, to add on to that, one of the things that's interesting is, in some ways, privacy, it's similar to the debate when cloud computing was first emerging. And there was enterprises who were saying, well, I'm never going to put my data out on a cloud service. I have my servers on my premise, and I'm going to keep all my data, in control of my organization. And over time, the large enterprise IT service cloud providers like Google and Microsoft and Amazon built up trust that people are like, you know what? The benefits and the costs are way better by moving this off premises and into the cloud. So that trust right now, that doesn't exist in the AI space, but it didn't exist at the beginning of the cloud computing either. So how do you see that like that transition going over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think it might be like similar approach, right? Probably like we still didn't really trust the big corporations, but we had no choice, right? Just probably at the time, like we found out, oh, if I have to build my server rack in basement, it's gonna be like more expensive than just using AWS. Okay, like let's trust them, right? So it's not just they really showed something to us, and I think it's the same thing. And because of the structure of big corporations, especially in the US, it's been always the case, right? Like I hope that this is not going to happen to Canada, but like we don't really have much of government power, right? Like to make sure that democracy is happening still, like like some like liberty or like some basic needs and basic rights of people are protected, right? So I think like Canada is definitely doing a lot better, but I hope that like we're not gonna go after like what the US is going after.
Okay. With that, I think we've actually reached our time for the day. I got to thank you guys. This has been a really interesting discussion about AI, where it comes from, how we can actually utilize it. I know that you guys are both available to our audience, so they can reach out to you and have those discussions further on. But with that, I'm going to turn this back over, and I think we're going to just be walked out, and we can have a discussion about what's going to be on for next.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, James and Ali, for your insights. Really, really appreciate it. And of course, James, as always, for your moderation. So for everyone in Calgary, just a quick announcement. Next week, we are hosting the Alberta Clean Tech Awards. So if you scan the QR code that you can see in the screen, you will be able to register. We have a couple tickets left for the celebration. It's going to be a great one on May 28th. And also the next session for our Fireside Chat, it's going to be on post-investment relationship management. So soon, very soon to be posted on the website, to stay tuned for that. Make sure to check our website, foresidecac.com/events. Thank you, everyone.